There's no doubt about the fact that 2022 has been the most turbulent year in golf's long and storied history. However, with no let-up in sight in the war between LIV Golf and the PGA Tour, the beef is set to rumble on into 2023. Today, we are discussing golf's huge civil war dragging on, plus Australia's Matt Jones accusing Rory McIlroy of not being able to make up his mind. So stay tuned. First up, an interesting take on the saga from Adam Scott. 2013 Masters winner Adam Scott was asked recently to decipher comments made by Tiger and Rory suggesting that Greg Norman should step down. But the Aussie had a refreshingly different take on the whole situation, and he was questioning why the two tours needed to come together at all. Some have suggested that for both warring factions to prosper, a peace deal needs to be hashed out, but Scott doesn't quite see it that way. He believes they can function completely independently from one another, saying earlier this week, "I guess Woods and McIlroy speaking for the PGA Tour somewhat these days, it seems, but I don't know what this coming together is. I don't know, is someone making that up? Like, is that a possibility? I don't know. I'm really not involved at that level at all, and it seems like all speculation to me." Scott then doubled down on his stance and suggested that both sides should simply forge ahead with what they're doing, and whether that's together or not, he has no idea. Whilst Scott is the first to air this point of view, he might have a point. The LIV Golf fiasco has been so detrimental to the sport and the traditional PGA Tour that it might be best if they go their separate ways, with Scott describing the whole thing as a big shakeup, which they're not used to. What do you guys make of Scott's comments? Next up, the PGA Tour doesn't believe Norman is running things anymore. Stay tuned. In a legal motion filed at the end of last week, it's been suggested by the PGA Tour that Greg Norman isn't actually the one calling the shots at LIV Golf. The traditional tour believes it is actually the Saudi-backed public investment fund and Yasser Othman Al Rumayyan who are making the real decisions, and that Norman is a mere puppet. A PGA Tour statement read, "PIF and Mr. Al Rumayyan are central figures. They are the wizards behind the curtain. They call the shots, they approve the expenditures, and they supply the money. It is thought the PIF has invested somewhere in the region of $2 billion into the project so far, so it stands to reason that they would have a bigger say than Norman in the really big decisions. With Norman the public face of LIV, this gives the people who truly control the operational space, space to breathe. But if recent calls for Norman to step down are actually realized, then removing him would have little to no effect on proceedings if these claims are true." A redacted part of the motion read, "Mr. Al Rumayyan's close supervision of LIV is consistent with PIF's internal description of Mr. Norman as a redacted for LIV. We can all take a good guess at what the blanked out word might be, right? We're discussing those claims that the Civil War could roll into 2023 next, so stay tuned." As a whole host of the world's top players jumped ship to LIV Golf earlier this year, including Cameron Smith and Phil Mickelson, the PGA Tour and DP World Tour quickly banned these players from taking part in their event, and one, current world number 27 Ryan Fox, has suggested that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Speaking last week, Fox made a prediction by saying, "As things stand, I don't see it getting sorted out. They are all suing each other," before suggesting that the fact that both parties are suing each other makes it difficult for them to come to the negotiating table. He carried on and said, "It's pretty messy and there's a lot of misinformation out there. At some level, something needs to change. But what that is, I don't know." However, Fox did concede that having LIV around means competition is good, but he isn't a fan of the division it is created, suggesting it could become a more permanent fixture. Having just entered the top 50 year-end ranking for the first time, Fox now qualifies for the Masters and other tournaments directly, which he used as his motivation for sticking with the PGA Tour, explaining that they're the tournaments I dreamed of playing in and I don't want to jeopardize that. However, he didn't completely rule out an LIV Golf switch, saying that a lot has changed in the golf world in the last 6 months. Another player had his say on the issue too. Ryan Fox wasn't the only man voicing his opinions last week. Former US Open champ Jeff Ogilvy was also on hand to give his thoughts on the affair, and he revealed that from his point of view, it's not all doom and gloom. He conceded that at some point there will be a sit-down and some sort of friendly-ish compromise. I don't know if that will happen next year. He also alluded to the fact that there is now more money around the game and a better selection of courses to play on, explaining that it is a good time to be a professional golfer. However, Ogilvy did seem to pine for a truce, and even suggested suggested that it would be better for everyone if the two could coexist. Of course, there was no doubt about which side of the debate Ogilvy is on. He explained that the PGA Tour is absolutely right to defend their territory and that the Tour still has the best tournaments in the world, but he did suggest that they were possibly trying to hog the calendar a little. He went on by saying it would be nice to have a bit more room on the calendar for the schedule to breathe and let the worldwide scene have a bit of a chance. Absolutely. The debate is currently one of the hottest issues in the world sport, but Ogilvy currently thinks it's not as simple as it sounds. Where do you guys stand on the issue? Now, so what has Matt Jones had to say about Rory then? Stay with us to find out. Matt Jones has clapped back at Rory McIlroy recently, claiming that LIV Golf detractors have no idea about each player's reasons for joining. Critics will say they know exactly why they are defecting: money. The newly formed Saudi-backed league has the ability to make distinctly average golfers very wealthy, so as one of the first to sign up, Jones probably thinks he has to justify his position. Of course, many players have been accused of not just greed, but enabling sports washing, the Saudi government's attempts to improve its diabolical human rights record through sports. Jones was responding after McIlroy had claimed that it was time for the two warring factions to come together for negotiations, but not before claiming it would be best to do so without Greg Norman. He explained that it was very negative at the beginning before adding, "I'm pretty sure all the lawsuits that are going on right now have quieted things down on both sides. I mean, Rory likes to say one thing and say another thing. He likes to change his tune every so often." He then suggested that the LIV Golf defectors were all unfairly treated and claimed those who stayed true and loyal to the PGA Tour have no idea what someone's situation is and why you would do it. Let's all be real for a second here. Golf is one of the best paying sports in the world, and no professional golfer is struggling financially. What else did Jones say? Well, let's see. Jones has been involved in a legal case against the PGA Tour and suggests that he should be allowed to play in the playoffs, claiming he wasn't taking a spot from anyone. He also went on to explain that the addition of bigger name players such as DJ and Cam Smith definitely helped to legitimize the newer tour, saying that when they came over, I was very happy, before claiming that someone like Johnson had the pulling power to encourage others to jump ship. Jones then revealed that once he was on board, something clicked for LIV, saying the quality of golfer that he was for them to see him come over. I think that was a big get for LIV and for the future years coming. Of course, there is currently no indication of how the LIV Golf situation might play out, but Jones has said that he has no qualms about his decision, and he was welcomed back to Australia despite concerns that golf fans down under might have turned on him and his fellow pros such as Smith. He finished by saying, "I was always trying to play the PGA Tour when there was anti-LIV. I didn't care about that. I mean, it is what it is. I play golf for a living to make money and provide for my family, and that's what I'm doing." Do you guys think a compromise can be reached? As always, thanks for dropping in on us today, and remember to tune in again next time when we'll be discussing all sorts of other cool bits and pieces. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.